Yeah, hey everybody, how's it going? Dan here on Drum Talk TV Brilliance. And I know, I can read minds. And I know a lot of people are thinking, like, why is there a keyboard player on Drum Talk TV Brilliance? What's up with that? Well, for one reason, because it's not just a keyboard player, it's our friend Oliver Wakeman. And number two, that's part of the fan Q&A series, is that we have many different instrumentalists, not just drummers on. And we welcome Oliver for the second time, sort of. Last time you did a live stream concert and some Q&A stuff, and now you're back. And for about the next 15, 20 minutes, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about while we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube. And then we'll do the fan Q&A session in the membership site. And for those of you not familiar with that, check out the text in this post, follow the breadcrumbs. We'd love for you to join us. Oliver, how are you? How are your holidays?
Good, thank you. Yeah, they're very, very nice, very relaxed.
Great.
A lot of rehearsing.
That's good. Relaxing's good. I think most of us do not get enough of that. You got a lot going on. One of the first thing I want to touch on is the 2005 work that you did of Mother's Ruin is releasing 20-year anniversary, March 13th, 2026. Where does all that time go? So that's one question. But the other question is, where does this album sit for you in your personal anthology of work, and what perhaps pivot point, if any, or turning point or milestone is that album for you?
It was a massive record for me personally, because it came about. I'd worked on some instrumental albums. I'd done a couple of solo instrumental albums. I'd done a couple of records with Clive Nolan, which had been a mixture of instrumental songs and songs, and I'd always written songs. But then I've got into this bit of a habit throughout my whole career, is that I never do the same album twice. So it sort of came to the point, well, what do I want to do next? What do I want to understand more about? What do I want to challenge myself to do? And the idea of actually going away from big concept-y things with a cast of 20 or 30 people, the idea of actually thinking, well, maybe I can just put a 5-piece band together and actually go and play music with the same bunch of guys rather than lots of different people. So that was sort of a driving force behind it. And I also wanted to just write songs rather than just instrumentals as well. So I wanted to do a whole album of vocal pieces, and then utilize the stuff I'd learned about arranging music in a more complex and traditional way than just a 3-minute song.
Right.
So it was really important for me to sort of do that as another sort of route of music, to see how that worked for me and what I could get from that. And so it was a massive album for me that way. And then I got to work with some people, the same people over and over again. The advantage you've got when you do one of the big concept-y things is that you've got a lot of, you've got a lot of sort of sound palette to use when you've got 12 different people there, of which 5 different singers. You can make pieces sound individual, you can use them in different places, and it doesn't matter if a flute comes in just for 30 seconds and disappears again. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. But when you're working with just a 5-piece band, you're working with the sounds and the instrumentation that those 5 people can create. And so it's a different sort of challenge to create that same sort of identity across the whole record. And because it's just me as the writer, I'm writing all the guitar parts, the bass parts, the drum parts. You also want to stop it. You also want to shape it, but then give the other musicians enough room to actually add their sort of expertise to it as well. So it was great fun. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. It was brilliant.
Oh, that's great. And what can people expect that may be different from the original release on the anniversary issue?
Well, like you say, it's 20 years ago. And that was mildly terrifying when I realized that it was coming up for 20 years. Even more terrifying, I've realized that next year my first record came out in 1997. So one of them's hitting 30 years next year, which is
wow.
Which is really frightened. My son's 20, so I've realized I've got albums older than him. When I was in Yes, I used to joke that Heart of the Sunrise was older than me. And I
Right.
used to think that was a great way of going to the rest of the band. Hey, I'm younger than you guys. But now it's the other way around. My band, I'm the eldest. And I sort of, so suddenly realizing I've got records older than some of the people in the band is quite humbling at times.
Yeah.
But when it came to releasing the record, when we did the record back in 2005, for those that are interested in the technicalities of recording records, of which I imagine some of your listeners are,
Certainly.
It was done in the days of, it was post ADAT. So we got past ADAT and we were into the early days of Pro Tools. But we were also in the early days of Pro Tools when Pro Tools didn't really handle MIDI very well. And Cubase was still the MIDI tool that a lot of keyboard players used. So you had to sort of have one computer firing all the MIDI to all the keyboards live in the studio, and then having a sort of time code connection between the Pro Tools computer, and then you would have to be on the audio desk and actually mixing desk and raising things and taking things down. And because it was on a budget, you had that sort of period, right, we can probably run through the record 2 or 3 times, hundreds of notes of what faders were going where at what point. And we were very proud of the result that we got. Over the years, when I got back to looking at this again, I suddenly looked at all the audio files that we had from the Pro Tools sessions, and I had some of the I had to go back and find all the MIDI files. And when I was looking at the MIDI files, I was sort of going, and when I mean MIDI files, I'm talking about, there's all the, for anyone that's done this, the MIDI files are all the keyboard recordings. You record the keyboards,
Right.
that it records your information, then plays it back to the keyboard. And I realized that actually I was like, hang on, what's that keyboard? I never heard that. And then suddenly, as I was going through the record, I was finding little parts that we'd either inadvertently missed, had been too quiet in the mix, or had just been muted, or that weren't there at all. And the back end.
Interesting.
So I suddenly went through and went, hang on a second, and I sort of started to roughly mix it again myself. And I sort of listened to the original and then listened to the rough mix that I'd done and gone, oh my God, there's an awful lot more here than I remembered. And then suddenly, so I started doing it on one track and then realized actually it's all of them. There's stuff missing on all of them. So I got in touch with Carl Groom, who engineers pretty much most of my records, did all the stuff I did with Yes with him and all my other solo records. And we just basically spent some time going back through it because he mixed the original record as well. So he was familiar with the music.
Right.
And then we just went backwards and forwards through this music and ended up with this much, much nicer, fuller, more rounded mix that just made it sound a lot more together. The original.
So I have a question about that. Like,
yeah,
how much of that, Oliver, was simply that perhaps either it was related to time constraints and budget and studio time and all that, or how much of it is or may have been relevant to your musical taste changing now or having evolved since then, where back then you said, no, we'll mute that, we'll bury that, we'll put that way down in the mix, we'll use that. Whereas now your musical taste say, no, that works, let's do more of that.
I think there might have been an element about it. We're talking 2005. So we're talking that age in music where, the Dream Theaters and things like those sort of bands were really, really coming into their own around that sort of time. Obviously they were around before that, but they were really becoming that thing. And so guitars back in the mid 2000s, in the back and mid of the 90s, we were sort of keyboard, prog rock, neo rock, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then it sort of got into a lot of these sort of heavier bands coming in, being very driven by guitars. So, maybe we, without thinking about it, went into a more guitar heavy mix than keyboard mix. And as I've sort of got older and listened to it and maybe got a little bit more, actually, I'd like to hear it more equal. And so I think it was that sort of thing. So it actually has a much nicer balance now to the whole record. And Carl mastered it louder as well, which is good because I'm old and deaf.
And I'm even older and more deaf.
Yes.
I get that. Awesome. And let's jump over to something else that you've got going on, this Wakeman and Son tour of the East Coast.
Yep.
That's in March, and that's you and your dad, Rick. Can you give us a little peek into what to expect there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've always, in the nicest sense, I've always tried to plow my own path. Although that might sound odd to some people, thinking that I've been in Yes and Straubs and stuff, but I've, from a very young age, I was always very independent. I was very much, no, I'm going to do it this way round. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And if it fails, it's failed because I haven't done it right. And I'm going to learn from it. You know, it's one of those things I think is important as a musician. You learn, and you find your own path. But Dad and I had done a few things over the years where I think it was 2005, actually, at the Mother's Ruin launch concert that we did back in 2005 or 2006, I think it was. He turned up to support me at that launch. And then I said, do you want to come up and play a track? And he said, well, what do you want to play? And I'd written this little blues boogie thing, and we just called it the Wakeman Boogie. And we just got up and jammed around for a bit. It was great. It was lovely. A couple of years later, he's wanted to do a Christmas concert with my brother and my sister. So we did that one-off concert. And then a couple of years later, he said, do you want to do another one? And so we did another one. And then he said, a couple of years after that, or 2 or 3 years after that, I did another one with my brother and my dad and my sister again. And then he asked me to do one with me and him and his band. We did a little acoustic show, which I went along did. And these are all great. I mean, they're hard. Obviously, Dad's music is quite complex anyway. But Dad has a habit of saying, come the day before, we'll work out the songs. You'll be fine. And then you're there frantically scrabbling, trying to work out what is needed and what needs to be performed. Right. And so I sort of got into those habits with him of doing that. And then at the end of that last show that we did, he said, oh, I'm doing King Arthur at the O2. Would you come and do it with me? I need a second keyboard player. And I said, yeah, okay, great. And so the same thing again. Here's a load of music. Go off and learn this and turn up and play in the O2 with me, please. And it was like, okay. And that concert, just to digress slightly, that had a choir and an orchestra and a narrator and us as the band.
Is there a video recording of that? I'm unaware.
I think there's some stuff on YouTube. But
okay.
But the whole thing about that, of those 4 things, the orchestra, the choir, the narrator, and the band, at no point had all 4 of those things been rehearsed together.
Yeah.
They'd all been rehearsed individually, like band and narrator, band and choir, band and orchestra, you know. And so the first time we actually all played it together was the show. Wow. So I got used to this sort of thing with Dad. And then at the end of last year, he said to me, I've got to go and do this tour in America. He said, and we've never actually toured together. Would you like to do the tour together? And I sort of thought, yeah, I've been doing this sort of my own way for long enough now, and I think people would respect that maybe I've done quite a lot in my career now. So me working out with Dad isn't a bit of a change of direction. It's literally just wanting to go out and perform with Dad and spend some time together. And I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a really nice thing to do, I think.
That's great. Gosh, we'd love to see you out west in the US as well. So hopefully that'll go so well that you guys are inspired to do that.
I hope so. He said that nobody'd asked, or people weren't that interested. But
what? Come to my house and do it. I'll empty out this room. It's about 15 by 35 feet. We'll make it work. No, that's awesome. So happy to hear that. And then you've got the From a Page tour in April of 2026, and 7 months later in November. That's got to be exciting, taking that music on the road.
That's going to be great fun. I mean, we did basically, I seem to have this history of the last 10 years of just doing one-off shows, which are unbelievably stressful and unbelievably hard to learn everything in such a short period of time. And then you finally get to the end of the show and you go, hurrah. And then you go, oh, right, that's it now. Now I go back and do something else.
Right.
So what it was, we got invited to do a headline festival for a festival called Winter's End Festival. And I had the Anam Cara record out, which was a record I did in 2004, which was a sort of Celtic rock record with a great singer called Hayley Griffiths. She's got a beautiful voice. She's she's, for those that don't know, she's remarkable in the fact that she's got multi-octave range. She can just sing pretty much anything.
Yeah,
But
amazing.
She's a trained classical singer, so she can go soprano, hit all the notes that you need up high. She's been in a rock band for years, so she can gravel and give her voice a bit of rock and attitude as well. And she's also been, she was one of the original singers on Riverdance and Lord of the Dance with Michael Flatley. So she had a Celtic background, and the record that I'd written was a sort of Celtic rock thing. So we ended up creating this sort of good relationship of working together. And then the festival said, well, would you like to promote the record? And I said, yes. And they said, well, could we do something to make it a bit special? Could you play some of the From a Page tracks? And obviously Hayley has got that sort of voice that can pull off that sort of higher register singing,
Right.
and has the stage presence to be able to front the band doing it and own the songs. So we sort of thought, actually, we could probably do this. So we had a couple of days rehearsal, managed to pull the show together. And we did this great show, and it got some really lovely reviews. I still get messages from people now saying how much they enjoyed it. And then it was just literally a couple of promoters got in touch and sort of said, would you come and play that show again? And we sort of went, well, yeah, that'd be quite fun. And then, before you know it, 2 or 3 more came out, and then we booked in 4 shows and went, right, that'll do. We'll just do the 4 and see how it goes. And then suddenly another people were writing to me saying, well, you're going to, in the England, that you're going to come up north and play.
Oh, that's great.
Got like 5 more promoters came on board, and we're getting more people asking for stuff for 26 now. So it's kind of okay. And then hopefully we'll try and get into Europe as well. So it's just that sort of thing that's just, for having done loads and loads of one-offs, it's actually now starting to get into a few sort of shows in a run, which is lovely, because no matter how much great fun a one-off show is, and I'm sure most of your listeners that are musicians have all done one-off shows.
Oh yeah, just this big build-up, and then yeah. It's like almost like an emotional crash in a way.
And also you never quite get to really totally relax into it. That only comes after a couple of shows where you sort of all get used, because it's not just about, you can play the notes and you can play the song perfectly, but it's just about that interaction with each other on stage, or just a little
synergy
bit more
locking in, and
and you find things that work as well. After a couple of shows, you go, hey, that was really good last night, let's do that twice round this time. Let's, you find out what works on the show. So that's what I'm really looking forward to being able to go out and do that with these people. And actually, it's going to be lovely. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've got Oliver Day playing guitar on that record, on that tour. So those that don't know, Oliver's played in tribute bands for many years, and he is like a Steve Howe aficionado. Like, there's YouTube videos of him at like the age of 14 playing the clap and stuff like that.
Wow.
So when it came to doing this tour, it was like, he was like my perfect choice, because I needed somebody that could really emulate that Steve approach to playing, because it's quite an unusual guitar style.
Yeah. And you have your son Arthur, who's going to join you on keyboards for the tour, right?
He is. Yeah. He's a young lad. He's 20. He's been playing piano for a while. And to be honest with you, there's certain parts on some of the Yes tracks where, when we played it live, my keyboard tech has got a keyboard. There's certain sections where you need to have more than 2 keyboards going. Yeah. And I'm going to sound really old school here, but I'm a real not sampler type of chap. I don't, and I know a lot of musicians, a lot of my friends that are musicians go out and have samples triggering this and triggering that and doing that stuff. But I'm a little bit more sort of, I like playing it, or I like having it played.
Yeah.
And so when I did, my keyboard tech was doing a few little pads here and there. And, when it rocked through. You make pieces a little bit rockier when you sort of got just the 5 of you and a few pads. And I suddenly thought, actually, it'd be really nice. He played with me. We did a couple of charity concerts, and he played with me at the charity concerts. And I said to him, would you like to come out? And, he's going to help sell some of the merch and things. And I said, would you like to come up on stage and do some of the songs? And he said, oh, I'd love to. Can I do that? And I said, yeah. And I said, well, why don't you come on at the end and help me with the Yes songs? Because then there's, a few more keyboard parts going on. I can give you some bits and pieces to do.
Right.
And he was really keen to do it. And we'd sort of organized that before Dad's tour came in. And then Dad's tour dropped. And it was like, this is really interesting. I'm sort of going to go dad to me and Arthur, which is a lovely thing. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. And it's, it's not too much pressure for him because the rest of us are going to do the show, but he gets to get up there and just experience that sort of feeling of being in a van, traveling around a bit,
Yeah.
get to understand how venues work, how it works, interacting with people. It's an interesting thing. I used to do it when I was a kid. I used to go out and sell the merch for my dad when I was a kid. It's one of those fun things, and so I'm quite looking forward to it.
That's really cool. Are you gonna, just to protect his innocence a bit, are you gonna have him on like a big child leash to make sure he doesn't go off and get tainted by all the stuff with the groupies and the heavy partying and all that stuff, just to be able to, reel him in once in a while?
Yeah, he has to sign a contract. Yes, no misbehaving. Yeah, he's a good lad. He'll be fine.
Great. Gosh, I wish I thought of that contract when the kids were young and at home.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice. That's really exciting stuff. So we're going to move into the membership site fan Q&A session in just a moment. But first, I want to give Oliver a chance to pump up his Facebook fan page so he can get more followers. Why don't you read it off? Steve will drop a link into the comments. And folks, we encourage you to follow Oliver there. There's always so much fun stuff. If you're an Oliver fan, you'll love it. So talk about that a bit.
Well, yeah, actually, I thought I'd mention that because basically about 6, 7, 8 months ago, I found something in the garage. Basically, I found an ABWH backstage pass, and I just posted it on Facebook for a laugh. I just do these things every now and then, just a post here and a post there, and suddenly it got a lot of reaction. I went, oh, that was a bit surprising. So I did another couple, and then more and more people started interacting, and now I've sort of turned it into a sort of little story section where I find records that have inspired me through growing up, or history of working with Yes or any of these other bands. And there's usually a story behind it. It's never just a post that says, here's a drumstick, and then a picture of a drumstick, or here's a keyboard I used, and then there's generally some sort of story behind it. That's great. And it's just a useful opportunity for more to let more people know that the Facebook site is sort of getting regularly updated. I do a couple of posts a day. Once we finish here today, I'll do a couple more. And so if anybody does fancy reading my nonsense musings and learning about occasional little hidden stories from Yes, it's an interesting read. Have a look, see if it's interesting. If it's not, just ignore me.
That's great. And Steve's gonna put the address in the chat, which I'm looking at. Can you read off what your Facebook page address is? Do you know off the top of your head? Is it just Facebook?
I think it's just Oliver Wakeman. Yeah. Okay. Facebook.com/Oliver Wakeman.
Pretty easy to find, I'm sure. And Steve's got it in there. Thanks, Steve. And folks, join us in the membership site. You can come up on screen like Ray Rithmeyer is about to do, who we're happy to see. Returning. He served his prison sentence and he's back out and active with us. Just kidding, Ray. Just kidding. Happy to have him. And we encourage you folks to come on and ask whatever questions you want of Oliver. And just one quick ABWH anecdotal thing here. Last night we had our twice a month music themed game show, and the theme was debut albums. And one of the questions I put together for one of the rounds was, this band put out only a debut album. That round was only bands that put out one album, and that was it. I said a band of mates who had played together in another band, but put out just a debut album in this band, and it listed a few bands, and the answer is ABWH. It's the only album they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Quite interesting. All right, cool. Thanks for all that, Oliver. We will go into the membership site. Folks, we hope to see you there. The link on how to do that is right in the chat. So go ahead and follow us there. And let me just click a couple buttons. What just happened here? Okay. I did click the wrong button. Oops. Hold on a sec. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right.